What's up, guys? Scott from Titan Recording here. I just wanted to give you guys a little quick tour or run through of my whole amp section over here. Just kind of show you how I have it set up and kind of how it works, and just give you all of that. So yeah, hope you like it. Check it out. Okay, guys, so this is my whole guitar amp setup. For right now, I'm just gonna show you the basics of it with just 2 amps. I've got my Marshall DSL100 and my Soldano SL030, but I've also got, you know, a bunch of other amps. So you can hook up 8 amps. As you can see, I've done, you know, the video before on the Delisle amp speaker selector, which is sort of the centerpiece of this whole setup. And then attenuator, speaker selector, and ground switch or whatever. So as you can see, as I've shown before, right now I'm playing the SL030. Single coil. So that's a Soldano into the aux right here. Here's the Marshall into the aux. Go Marshall into my torpedo captor here. We can hear my, I've got an actual PPC 212 orange cabinet, and it's mic'd up in the other room, and then I've also got a Mesa 412 mic'd up in the other room. Anyways, so what I wanted to talk about mainly though was down here. I recently, well not recently, a while ago, I bought this Fryette Power Station 100 watt. Now they make a 50 watt version as well, but it is serving as an attenuator, a effects loop for all of my tube amps. So when I switch between all of the amps that I have and speakers that I have, whatever effects I'm using down here going into the effects loop will remain. So I'm not actually using the physical effects loops from the amps themselves. There's no cables plugged into them whatsoever. You can do that. They do make, you know, companies do make ones where you actually, when you switch between amps, it'll switch to their individual effects loop. So you can do that. But I decided this worked better for me, less cables, and it works just as well. But basically it serves an attenuator, a power amp, 2-channel power amp, and it's a tube power amp as well, 100 watts. And then, so attenuator, power amp, and an effects loop for my amps. Anyways, so as you can see, I've got my HX effects here. It's running into the effects loop. I've got the Bubbletron right here running into the effects loop of the HX effects. And then my Tumnus is running into the input of the amp itself. So these are not tied together. All this is in no way tied to this. So this stuff is running into the Fryette. This is running into the front end of whatever amp I'm plugged into. And here's just a channel select switch for whatever, for the Soldano. Anyways, let's switch to that. So that's it dry, but I can switch on the spring reverb. And that's going through the effects loop of the Fryette Power Station. Now, right now I'm on the SLO. If I switch to the Marshall, I've still got my spring reverb and a delay if I want it. Switch back to the Soldano, still applies. Switch the speaker to the captor, it all is still there. Anyways, so then the Bubbletron I can activate, you know, part of the HX effects effects loop. And then on the front end, you've got this Tumnus. Anyways, and then I can still switch, whoops, forgot the ground loop there. And I can still switch channels of the amps themselves. So anyways, so It's a really cool setup. I'm really happy with it. It's great. What I like to have happen is when a band comes in, guitar players, I'll have them come in and I'll plug them into the direct box here, which is going into my whole setup. Because I like to capture direct signal and amp signal, you know, like all that stuff. In case I want to reamp, I've got this. I can run it back through, go into a different amp, make different choices. You get the idea. Anyways, so that's kind of why I have this set up that way. You know, band shows up. If they don't have a guitar, they can pick from any number of guitars I have. They can plug in. They can try out the different amps, try different cabinet sounds, speaker sounds and stuff, and different effects and stuff, and pick out their tone that they really want. You know, it's a really, really good setup for that. The other really cool thing about it is if you have amps that don't have effects loops, like I think this Basement, it doesn't have an effects loop. This gives it an effects loop. Like, boom, there you go. You've got an effects loop for an amp that doesn't normally have one. So that's a really, really cool addition to all of this as well. Now, some of the downsides is that the power station, since it's a tube power amp, it has a fan in it. It's got to cool itself, and if you need this to be in a silent space, it's probably not going to work out for you because it makes a little bit of noise. It's like having a kind of a slightly loud computer in your control, you know, in your whatever room you're in. Now, since I don't really record a lot of mic'd stuff in my control room, it doesn't really make that difference to me. And even if I am and somebody's playing the electric, I don't have to use the attenuator. I can use a different attenuator too. I have standard attenuators as well that I could run in. So I'm set for that. The other downside is that I haven't found a way to do the 4-cable method with just the HX effects. So as you can see, I've got the Tumnus running into the front end, but I have no way to use it. So there are tons of great overdrives and distortions and fuzzes on the HX effects itself, but I haven't found a way to like remove something like this from the chain, get something into the front end of the amp here, and then the rest of it going into the effects loop of the Fryette. I haven't found an effective way to do that because every time I try and do it, I'm either creating a feedback loop or I am removing the amp itself from the equation and we're just hearing the power amp section of the Fryette. So if anybody knows how to do that, definitely hit me up. I haven't figured it out. It doesn't matter that much. I guess you could buy 2 HX effects, have one be for the input section and one be for the effects loop, if you're doing the same thing as me. Or you could just, you know, I've got plenty of pedals, so I'm not too worried about it. I like all the stuff that I would put on the front end. I have pedals that I really like for that anyways. And then I love this in the effects loop. So but as you can see, I can also throw like actual physical pedals into the effects loop through the HX effects as well. So that's really handy. The other really handy thing about it is because it's a power amp, I'm super into the Synergy stuff and their modules. I wanted to be able to use this type of system for a long time. I went ahead and got rid of the 50-watt amp, and the reason that I did was I actually found that the depth and presence controls had a little bit more power over the overall tone on the power station than the actual 50-watt head. I didn't find that it did not sound better than this going through the power station. So this I'll run into the line input of the power station. So this is like an amp all in one. So here's your preamp section, and here's your power amp section. And you know I have it as an option to run it into any of the other amps if I want, but I like running it just like this. If I want to use it, I'll run it to the line in of the power station and kick it on another channel and the second channel of it, and then just get the tone I want from all the different modules that I have. So, you know, I have stuff like the Fryette Deliverance and the, you know, Engel Savage, and, you know, there's all different types of modules. They really aren't that expensive, so you can get different types of tones if you want. That being said, actually, I've found that, you know, a lot of these different amp sounds, splitting hairs in a lot of in a lot of cases. The biggest difference is really the changing speakers. So if you really want to hear a major difference in your tone, something like the aux or the captor is really great because you can do silent recording with it, and it sounds just almost as good as the real cabinet. And in the aux's case, I think just as good, really. And you can just get any kind of tone you want, really. Anyways, so the other setup here, as you can see, I've got all these bass amps here. Those are not set up to be switched through. I actually just have one bass cabinet set up and mic'd up, and I'll just plug the speaker cable into whichever one I decide I want to use. But that's pretty much it. This is my whole amp wall and speaker selection setup, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it.